Hi, hello. How you doing? Long time no see. I've been gone for like a month now, and it is mostly because I've been traveling, just taking some time off. And that doesn't mean that I haven't been doing things. So, before I start this video and before I start talking to you about all the books I've read, just to clarify, I won't be going in depth about a lot of the books that I'm mentioning in this video because I have a few vlogs coming up that I filmed on the month of July. So I'm very excited for you to see those, but I just wanted to record a quick wrap up of everything I read in June and July so that we can talk a little bit about those books, so that we can discuss. Let me know if you read any of these books these months, if you enjoyed them, if you didn't, why. Let's just have a little chat. And without further ado, let me just start with the books I read in June and July. The first book I read in June was Lover Enshrined by J.R. Ward, which is the fifth, I think, book in the vampire series that I've been reading since last year. It's just really fun. It has 19 books, so I'm going through it really slowly and just taking my time and enjoying the ride, and I probably won't finish it this year, looking at the fact that I have like 15 books left, but I am enjoying the ride. And I always say this in all my videos, it's just like a thing. I don't know why I feel the need to explain why I'm reading these books. I think it's fine. They're really fun. They're romance, like erotic vampire books. They do have an interesting plot line behind everything that happens in each book, because we follow like a band of warrior vampires, and they're fighting against this big evil who are called the Lessers, that are like humans turned bad, like they're undead humans, kind of like zombies that have organizational skills, I guess you could say. And yeah, so I gave that one 3 stars. It's just very fun, very entertaining. Nothing amazing, but nothing, you know, bad enough for me not to keep reading. So I'll just keep on reading them for, I guess, the next couple of years. Then, ooh, I have it in my shelf. I read Pan by Newt Hanson, and this book was strange. It was so weird. It's something I could not explain to you. So many things happen in this book, and at the same time nothing happened. It follows a man who is a hunter in the woods with his dog, and I thought it was gonna be like a very introspective book, looking at his like background and what he's thinking about, how he lives in the forest, but it was more about like societal standards at this point in time, and about how he interacts with a woman that he's like obsessed with and infatuated with, and how far love can take you in these circumstances, and how men are just unhinged, insane when they are in love. Same thing with women, and like how that interacts. People here in this book are insane, and there is no reason for anything to happen, but it just happens. It's a little bit absurd if you ask me. The pacing is also kind of weird because the beginning is really slow, and then it gets a little bit faster in the middle, and then it gets slow again in the end, and it has like 200 pages. So I would say it is enjoyable if you're interested in reading like a short classic, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. And I gave it 2 stars. And it also has some animal cruelty that I wasn't expecting, so keep in mind that trigger warning in case you want to pick it up. But I'm interested in reading other works by this author because I've heard amazing things, and I heard a lot of raving reviews about this book and other books from this author, and I guess I just wasn't impressed by this one, but I'm open to giving this author another chance in maybe a couple of months, because I don't think I can get over like the last portion of this book, because can somebody explain to me why? Has anybody read this? Like, I'm interested to know. Has anybody read this? Did you like it? What did you like about it? Can you please just explain to me this book in general? Thank you very much. I'll put it back in my shelf. Alright, and then moving on to the next book I read, which is like a step up from that one, is Crying in Mart by Michelle Sonner, and this was amazing. It was an incredible memoir focused around food and the relationship of the author with her mother, grieving the fact that her mother died of cancer. That is like very explicitly told at the beginning, and we know that that's like the process that she's going through as she's writing this memoir. And I listened to it in an audiobook, and I think it was awesome because we get Michelle's narration, we get her emotions at some points in the novel. Surprisingly, I didn't cry, and I think it was because I was reading it while I was like in the metro and in the bus, so maybe that like took away kind of the sentimentality of the novel for me, and maybe it would have hit harder if I had just been like sitting down and processing what I was listening to. It hit me much harder later as I was thinking about the novel and the fear of losing someone I love to such an awful illness, and I don't know, it just like stuck with me later, and all the thoughts about the book came a month later. I'm still processing like how I feel about it. I don't rate memoirs, so I didn't give this book a rating, and I would just say it's excellent. It's really good. It's up there with Know My Name by Chanel Miller, which is my favorite memoir, and so I would highly recommend it. I do want to put out a warning that it is a difficult book to read in terms of like sickness and illness and seeing someone you love succumb to those like darker aspects of cancer, and it can be very difficult. So again, same thing with Know My Name. Memoirs that deal with difficult topics always should be, you know, taken with caution and read with care and love. And if you're able to read it, then I would highly recommend it. Then I read The Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri. I've heard only amazing things about this collection of short stories, and I had actually read one of the short stories in my short story course in university, and I didn't know it was included in this collection. So as I was reading it, I thought to myself, oh, I know this one. I don't know where from, and then I start thinking about it, and I realized that it was because I read it for a class. And I thought each story on its own was very well written, though it doesn't necessarily follow like a strict storyline, obviously, because it's like snippets of storytelling. I thought the underlying theme that joined these stories together, about immigration, about cultural clashes, about adaptability of human beings in environments that can be different than the ones they come from. I obviously can relate to that, as I've lived in other countries and I've had to adapt, and it can be very harsh to have to move somewhere and adapt to a new culture. I thought those themes were excellent. I just don't necessarily enjoy short story collections. I think upon reading different short story collections, I've come to realize that I prefer much more the ones that come with like essays, and that we follow one particular person talking about their lives and giving us like snippets of their own lives, like Eve Babbitt's, for example, that I will talk about later. But in this case, when we're following different characters, different storylines, different things, I much prefer reading a novel, and I've realized that about myself. I don't think short stories are for me. That's just my personal preference, but if I were to rate this one, I give it 4 stars because I thought it was very well written. It deserves the hype. It deserves, obviously, all the prizes, and I'm no one to say this, but I just wanted to point out that I don't necessarily like short stories. But moving on, I read a manga. I read Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 1, which I gave 4 stars. I'm also kind of watching the anime, but don't ask me about it because I don't ever watch the things that I say I'm watching because I don't have time. So let's just say I'm watching the anime, but I'm also reading the manga. So we're doing those things slowly but surely. And then in July, I started the month by reading The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill, and I loved it. I loved it so much. It was so cute. I loved it. There's a character who's a dragon and they're so cute, and I don't know, I loved it. I listened to it on audiobook and it just brought me back to a lot of like childhood nostalgic feelings, and not necessarily because this is a book like written for children, and though it can be a little bit more simplistic in some of its themes and in your face when it comes to like the message that it's trying to give you. I absolutely loved the characters, and I think that's what made this story so just beautiful. I loved it. I think I am regaining the love for fantasy and just fantastic novels. And this was incredible. And so I give it 5 stars. And it's about a little girl who drinks the moon and she gains some magic powers and everything unveils from there. And I don't want to give you too much because I think it's a book that you should go into not knowing much. So yeah, really cute. Then I read The Mothers by Britt Bennett, which I gave 4 stars, and this one was also incredible. I think I read a lot of good books these 2 months because I've been feeling for a while that I haven't been reading things I enjoy, and so for June and July, especially July, I just decided to read the things I truly feel like I may enjoy. And so when I read The Mothers, I picked it specifically because I wanted to read a story surrounding abortion, but also I wanted to read more from this author who wrote The Vanishing Half. This was her debut novel, and I actually liked it more than The Vanishing Half. I liked the interactions within themselves, their own thoughts and psyche surrounding the many different issues that they have to face, because although this focuses heavily around the topic of abortion and what it means to go through that and the impact that it can have in people's lives, and not only the person who goes through it but also their partner or their family, the family of the partner or the significant other, how it has so many different layers and decisions that you have to make that have repercussions throughout your life in many different periods of your life. And I thought it was very well written, and I truly felt for these characters. So I gave it 4 stars and highly enjoyed it. Then I read I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston, and unfortunately I did not like this novel. I read it as a buddy read for the Summersplash readathon alongside other creators. Some of them really enjoyed it and some of them didn't like it at all, and in my case I fall under the latter category. I really didn't like this book. I thought the characters were just like cookie cutter versions of the characters that they wanted to be. I didn't necessarily enjoy the scavenger hunt aspect of it because I didn't understand why you would be so interested in this girl. I didn't understand the character dynamics. I don't know. I just think I wasn't a fan, and so I gave it 2 stars. Then I read It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and I don't think I am a Colleen Hoover stan. I don't think I like her. So this portion of the month was kind of like a low point for me. I didn't enjoy this one either. I thought, even though it was approached from a perspective of a real life story, I just couldn't quite connect with the characters. I didn't like the dynamics between the main character and her love interests. It all just rubbed me the wrong way. The like romanticization of some things. I know that obviously the world is not black and white, and this book deals with abuse, and in my case I didn't feel like this book represented it in the way that I would want it to be approached, if that makes sense. Obviously, every experience is different, and I'm not here to say that this experience is not valid, but the way that it was portrayed and written and just like explained, and like the romanticization and the idealization of your first love like coming back to your first love. It's just like, it rubs me the wrong way, and I feel like it reminds me of like mentalities that I had when I was in a very toxic place in my teenage years, in terms of like romance and love. And so I don't think I'm gonna be reading any other Colleen Hoover books, and I think I'll leave it here. But I just kind of wanted to put it out there. I don't think I'm a fan of Colleen Hoover, and I gave it 2 stars. It just wasn't for me. Then moving on, I read Felicity by Mary Oliver. I've been reading this book since the beginning of the year. I've just been like absorbing poetry by Mary Oliver, and I'm also in the process of reading devotions. And Felicity in particular was amazing. I thought this was very different from DreamWorks, which is the one I read last year, because it dealt more with human relationships rather than like, it does contain a lot of nature metaphors and a lot of nature imagery, but I felt like this one had more trauma and dealt with topics that maybe in DreamWorks we just kind of like surfaced around, and then here we kind of just like learned a little bit more about Mary Oliver, about, you know, like her thoughts when writing, maybe her writing style. I liked it a lot. And so I gave it 5 stars, and I love Mary Oliver. I love her poetry. I'm not a poetry gal. I don't really read a lot of poetry. I want to change that. Please introduce me to more poetry, because I want to be a poetry gal, but I'm still learning. And so Mary Oliver for me was like my starting point with like more traditional poetry, because I'm a big fan of Savannah Brown. And I thought, you know what, maybe like I'll get into poetry, but this is the type of poetry I enjoy. And so like maybe romantics that deals with nature. So if you have any recommendations of poetry collections that you think I would enjoy, please leave them in the comments below. And then I read A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. And this book surprised me in a different way, because I thought this was gonna be my favorite book of the year. I thought I was gonna read it and enjoy it, and just like, I thought I was gonna read it and just be enamored by the unhingedness of the novel. And though it is very unhinged, and obviously like we deal with a cannibal, a woman who eats her ex-lovers, or just like men in general, who is a complete psychopath, and she is she's a very interesting character to read from, because we don't get a lot of women psychopaths. And so you will see in the vlog that I discuss it further, and the reasons why I may not have given it like the full 5 stars that I wanted to give it. But overall, I thought it was very entertaining, a different type of novel, very unhinged, very gory, kind of disgusting at times, but it is the type of literature that I like to consume. I'm just gonna go now. I gotta leave. Okay, but anyways, in talking about consumption of other weird things, I also read Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung, and translated by Anton Her. And this is a short story collection. So you probably will know that I didn't really enjoy it. Overall, it was very well written, very well translated, but some of the stories were just like too nonsensical for me. I like to follow some sort of narrative, and I didn't feel like this had anything to add. And so I know a lot of people really enjoy it, and a lot of people really liked it, but in my case, some of the stories, I think like 2 or 3 were interesting, but the rest, I just kind of forgot about them and were just not my cup of tea. And so I gave it 2 stars. Then I read The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and I loved this one. I loved it. I was so surprised. In the same way with A Certain Hunger, that I thought I was gonna like it, and then I kind of like, I liked it, but not as much as I thought I would. In this case, I thought I was gonna hate it, and I loved it. And so I'm really happy. This is one, I think it's my favorite classic I've read, alongside Frankenstein and The Picture of Dorian Gray. And I annotated the hell out of it, and I talked about it a lot in my vlog, so you will see it soon. But I really enjoyed it, and I liked the writing. I liked Zelda's writing. But I just enjoyed the novel a lot, and so I gave it 5 stars. Yes, folks, we like the classic. Woo! Then I read Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. And this one I liked more than Shara Schmeeler. But I still don't quite know if I like Casey McQuiston. I think I have to read one last stop just to finish, like the how do you call it? Like the... No, it's not triathlon, it's the Trinity. And once I read that, then I'll know for sure if I like Casey McQuiston or not, because this one I really enjoyed it, but I thought it was too long. And I thought some of the things that were said or like discussed in the novel could have been cut out and it would have been fine. It kind of gave a little bit of like this feeling of Democrats are the best and Americans are the best and like British culture sucks. And I don't know, just looking at it from like an outsider's perspective, I'm just kind of like, you know, you both suck. We all suck. No, but seriously, there are, you know, good things, bad things. Politics is always really messy, and it's not black and white, and I felt like a lot of the discussions in this book are really black and white surrounding Republicans and Democrats. And knowing a little bit more about the background in American politics, I could see kind of how idealized this version of events were in the book. And I liked the love story, just not necessarily the surrounding dynamics in this book. And so I give it 3 stars. And then I read Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. And I'm not changing the rating for this book, even though I would probably not even rate it nowadays. Really enjoyed it. I annotated it a lot too. I had just like a very nice discussion with this book with my younger self. I was like talking to myself in this book and talking to Stephanie Meyer and just like discussing it and having a great old time, reminiscing on everything that I thought about when I read this back then when I was like 14, and I'm now 24, so it's been like 10 years since the first time I read it. And a lot of things have changed. I'm a different person now, kind of. In some aspects I am, but in many other aspects I'm still the same person. I still like vampires, and I can read this critically and still enjoy it. So as I said in my Instagram review, I think the main reason why this book got so much hate, and it is no surprise to anybody, that it is because teenage girls liked it back then. And anything that teenage girls like, everybody else seems to hate. I think I'm going to do like a full dedicated video on Twilight, and that's going to be fun. I have already been working on it, and so maybe you will see it in September, but I want to further discuss this book. So you will see more of me talking about Twilight. And if you're sick of it, I'm sorry. Not sorry. Okay, so my camera cut off. I have no idea what I was talking about. So I'm just gonna say Twilight is great. Doesn't deserve all the hate. But even my camera hates Twilight because she just decided to cut off exactly where I was like getting into my rant. And so I have no thoughts, head empty. let's move on. Then I read Black Swans by Eve Babbitt, and this is kind of like a short story collection, but I would say it's more like small essays, and I really enjoyed it. I think her writing is like you're like writing letters to a friend, or like she's like telling you about her life, but in a more, I guess, more narrative and intricate way. It's not by any means simple, but it's also not so unattainable that you are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I will say I got a little tired of reading so much about rich people that I think I need to take a break from like reading about rich people, but I liked her little reflections on some things. The opener of this book, like the opening story of this book, was amazing about jealousy. And I really, that hooked me in, and I was like, yep, I like you. I like how you write, so let me keep reading it. And I give it 4 stars. And just by the way, you know this sweater. If you've seen any of my videos, you know that I don't like Drake, but I like the color and it matches my headband, and so yeah, I'm cutting him up here. And it is from Hotline Bling, yes. Anyways, then I read Our Wives Under the Sea. I think my favorite book I read so far this year. Is that a true statement? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. This one or The Bird and the Sword, which I really loved too. I loved this book so much. I love gothic horror. I like the claustrophobic aspects of this book and how the author, Julia Armfield, was able to just intertwine these stories from the past and the present. We follow 2 women who are married, and one of them is a biologist that goes in a submarine mission and doesn't come back for like 5 months. And so her partner thinks she is dead, she's deceased, and when she comes back, because eventually she does, she's a completely different person, and we see the trauma and we see the physical changes that occur in this mission, and we don't really know much about it, and like things start happening, and I don't want to say anything else because this is also a book that you should go into without knowing anything, and it's quite the ride. Very well written. The characters feel like real people that you're like struggling with. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background. I thought it was incredibly well written, and I give it 5 stars. Then I read The Song of Achilles, another favorite. I actually just put it. Oh, hi! You wanna say hi to camera? Look who's here! Look who wanted to interrupt. You wanna say hi? Oh, okay. He just wanted to lay on the bed for a little bit, so yeah, we're just gonna let him. If you hear him in the background, you know, it's Chewy. So, The Song of Achilles, another amazing book I read this year. I loved it. It's on my favorites shelf, or books that I love, and what are you doing? It was devastatingly beautiful. If you have been living under a rock and you don't know what The Song of Achilles is about, it is a retelling of the Iliad from the perspective of Patroclus and Achilles. And all the historians analyzing the Iliad always referred to Patroclus as Achilles' companion, and there's obviously something else going on. They're gay. And so I read this book, cried in the lobby of the hotel that I was staying at, and I absolutely loved it. So thank you, Sally, for the recommendation. I gave it 5 stars. If you want to hear more of my thoughts, just wait. Just wait. I will post the vlogs soon. But we're almost done with the 19 books I read in June and July. Because the last book I read in July... No, that was it. Yeah, no, that was it. We're done. And so far in August, I've read 1 book called La Vona. Crazy. We will talk about it in my next wrap-up. But for now, I can leave you off with the amazing Song of Achilles, which I really loved and adored and enjoyed. Thank you for coming along in this wrap up. I enjoy having all of you here. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening to my thoughts, and I will see you soon in another video. Bye bye. Oh, and drink some water.